all ready to go? Let's see, it says my mute is off, but I never can figure out whether, yeah, it's working. So are we okay? All right, the chair will bring to order the Monday, August 6th, Single Family Design Board. Can we do a roll call to start with, please?
Here we go. Chair Sweeney.
Here.
Vice Chair Miller.
Here.
Board Member Farrell.
Here.
Board Member Mutisha. He's not here yet. Board Member Richards.
Here.
Board Member Ziegler.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the board on an item not on today's agenda? Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for approval of the July 23rd, 2018 minutes. And I'll go through those. Probably let's have a motion for approval, please.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Item number 1, if there's any corrections, changes, or questions, 726 North La Cumbre. Item number 2, 1686 Las Caneras Road. I do have a question. Excuse me, on item 1, because I did watch the tapes, even though that's what I did yesterday afternoon. On the North La Cumbre one, I didn't see. Did they have architectural drawings of buildings yet, or it was just the site plans? That was all they're talking about?
I think it was just site plans.
It was just site plans. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, because I couldn't see the camera, I couldn't see the drawing.
Yeah, it was just site plans.
Okay. 1686 Las Caneras Road. Item number 3, 1534 La Conilla Drive. Item number 4, 2736 El Prado Road. Item number 5, 3241 Lucinda Lane. Item number 6, 120 Summit Lane. Item number 7, 2315 Chapala Street. Okay, there is a first and second. I will, even though I did review the tapes and watch virtually all of the meetings, did skip a couple of things. It's not always interesting. But I will be abstaining because I wasn't present. So, Mr. Mutisha is joining us. We're about ready to, there's a motion on the floor, Joe, to approve the minutes for July 23rd, our last meeting. And, okay. There are no questions, no other comments. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Abstentions? Aye. No? No? Okay. So be it. Okay. Consent calendar, July 30th. Katie.
The minutes for the SFDB July 30th consent agenda are as follows. Item A, 640 Aurora Avenue received final approval as submitted. Item B, 2111 Edgewater Way was continued 2 weeks with the following comments. To 1, include gutters and downspouts on the plans. 2, provide a complete irrigation plan. And 3, revise the landscape plan to replace high water use plants with low water use plants. Item C, 1260 Mountain View Road received project design approval and final approval with the NPO findings. Item D, 1789 Calle Poniente received project design approval with the NPO findings. And the comment to verify the stormwater management determination with the Creeks Division. And item E, 420 Terrace Road was continued indefinitely to the full board.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion for approval?
I make the motion to approve these consent minutes.
Okay, do I have a second? Are there any comments or further discussion items? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Let's go to the consent calendar for this morning, August 6th.
The minutes for the SFDB consent agenda for August 6th are as follows. 81 Chase Drive was continued 1 week to consent with the comment to return with details of the wire mesh railing. Item B, 1805 Lighthouse Way, received final approval as submitted. Item C, 1789 Calle Poniente, received final approval as submitted. Item D, 3340 Foothill Road was continued 1 week to consent with the comment that the proposed addition is aesthetically appropriate. Item E, 1811 Prospect Avenue was postponed 2 weeks at the applicant's request. Item F, 1114 Bel Air Drive was continued indefinitely to the full board with the comments to 1, study using a cable railing instead of the proposed glass railing, and 2, demonstrate or show on the plans the distance the proposed deck is from the neighboring house. Item G, 2444 Santa Barbara Street was continued indefinitely to the full board with the comment to demonstrate how the proposed alterations are consistent with the neighborhood. And H, 2515 Cliff Drive was continued indefinitely to consent with the comments that 1, the walls are aesthetically appropriate, 2, to provide details of how the pump shed fits in with the rest of the site, and 3, provide a preliminary landscape plan.
Okay, so do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Any further comments? I had a comment, let's see, which one? Item F, question to the consent review folks. I guess that was Joe, you. It says demonstrator show on the plans the distance the proposed deck is from the neighboring house. Is that going to come in a plan form or a section, or that you left it up to them?
No, it comes in a plan form. It's,
Oh, okay.
It was
Just where it
close,
is.
It was close to the property line, and it's even closer now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions, so carried. Let's see, let's go to announcements. We do have a schedule in front of us. Katie, do you have something? Or Kathleen?
I just wanted to let the board know to make a note of the December 24th. Single Family Design Board that date has been canceled because of the holiday closure.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we won't meet again until the January 7th. Okay, thank you. Okay, Katie, any other announcements?
Yes, I have 2 announcements. First, 917 Paseo Ferrello has been scheduled, or excuse me, the appeal for 917 Paseo Ferrello has been scheduled for the October 2nd meeting. Do I have anyone that wants to represent the board at the hearing?
What date is that?
October 2nd?
I could attend. Unless you want to do it, Fred?
Well, I don't know if you've been, you'll be notified at some point. There may be a conflict in the making. There was a action taken against me, the State Fair Political Action Commission, in which I received a letter on Friday night. That's been sent to the city attorney, and it's now, I understand, the possession of all the city council. But because of circumstances involving individuals with that project, it's probably not a good idea that I attend. So, Brian, if you could do that, that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then the second announcement I have is the second item on today's agenda, 1402 Grand Avenue, has been postponed at the applicant's request. So that'll be scheduled for the next full board meeting on August 20th.
So that's item 2 today?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else, Katie?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Let's see. And I think we're prepared to go to item number 1, 1610 Sierra Street. The applicants come forward, please. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I need to excuse myself from
Item
1.
1.
I own it.
You own a property within 300 feet?
Yes.
Okay. So you will leave the room, watch us on TV outside. All right, thank you. Anyone else, before I forget? Does anybody else need to excuse themselves from any item? Okay. Then let's go to 1610 Sierra Street, please.
Sorry, 610 Sierra.
610, I'm sorry. Okay, this is here for a second concept review. Project was last reviewed March 19th, 2018. If you could introduce yourselves, please.
Susan Sherwin, representing the project, and this is Roberta Serbia, who is the owner's agent.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Miller, if you could read, am I not on?
No, they're not on.
Oh, they're not on, I'm sorry. You got, those little green lights have to be on.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Miller, if you could
Yes.
read what we talked about last time, please.
Number 1, the board appreciates the proposed style and quality of the architecture. Number 2, provide footprints of the adjacent properties on the plan, as well as a detailed site section of the proposed spa equipment location to identify how the spa will impact the neighbor. Number 3, provide the square footage of the proposed roof deck and clarify the distance from the property line. Number 4, restudy the front elevation doorway and the location of light fixtures, downspouts, and possible scupper. Number 5, provide scupper details. Number 6, study the proposed front wood gate and consider adding more detailing to the design. Number 7, study the proposed material for the upper deck railing system. Consider using some form of terracotta material to be more in keeping with the style of the architecture and era of the house. Number 8, provide a color board. Number 9, provide a detailed landscape plan. Number 10, provide lighting and lighting fixture details on the plans. Number 11, provide a demarcation on the plans regarding all new and existing square footage. Action taken by Miller, seconded by Motisha. Action was carried.
Thank you. Okay, so if you could share with us where you are at this point and how you address some of our comments, please.
Okay, so here on the site plan, you can see the neighboring residences. So that's sort of that. And so this is, we're going up the hill, so these are actually higher. There's about a 4-foot high retaining wall here and another probably 5-foot retaining wall that goes down low there. So that is that one. I don't actually have, I don't have that list in front of me that you just read off of, but here's a site section showing the spa equipment enclosure, the retaining wall. There's a secondary little curb wall on the neighbor's property that goes up. So I did work back and forth with the city to come up with a noise solution for the pump. I mean, I think we're over and above. We're not even counting the muffling qualities of the enclosure but we found a product here that guarantees that it will reduce the noise below the threshold for the city. So that has been accepted. Can I see your list so I can? Thank you. Okay. Square footage of the proposed roof deck and clarify distance from the property line. So this is a new area of roof deck here. This was existing roof deck, but this is a new roof deck here. So it's 11'7" from that property line.
So there's a railing here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a wall there.
A
Yeah.
wall, okay.
Restudy the front elevation and doorway location of light fixtures. So I remember that, yeah, this arch and the arch of the doorway were not quite as complementary before. So that was restudied. And light fixtures are, you can see this is the large one that's going to be like over the doorway. And the smaller ones will be something like this one.
Okay.
Large and small. Scupper details, pretty simple. Pretty simple scupper detail, just trying to kind of not have them be the focal point, yeah, but other items being really more interesting.
Will they be a color?
So you're anticipating painting them out.
I'm
That's what, yeah.
anticipating that I'm going to paint them the same color as the house.
Okay, so paint out to match the adjacent
That is
wall.
correct.
Okay. thank you.
Right. The front gate, we are purchasing, this old, I think it's a Moroccan gate, right? That
From Morocco.
Yeah.
Correct.
That we're using. So
already got
it's a more of a, so it's got a lot more detail to it. And also the front door is an older door
Correct.
that will
You can
have,
put that on the camera.
okay,
The camera's straight up.
okay. I'm trying to show them too.
That's okay. That's
Yeah.
fine.
And the upper deck railing system. So this house is old and it's a unreinforced clay tile building. So structurally we're really limited to what we can add to that wall. So what I've proposed is an aluminum, really simple, like aluminum railing that we would just paint out. I did find which I'm going to use for these window grills. There's a reinforced concrete. I don't know where it is, my detail. I think it's here. There's a reinforced kind of lightweight fiber reinforced. Maybe I don't have it on here, but it's a product where you can basically buy this grill, and I talked to them, and then you plaster over it, and I talked to them about whether they could manufacture like a small kind of something like this that could sit on top of this wall, but I haven't really gotten the calculations from the engineer yet about the weight and how that would work. So this is my backup plan, and if we can do something that's more like to make it look more like it's a heavier grilled plaster kind of thing, we will, because I think that would be preferable. But we're kind of limited in terms of weight.
Okay.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
Okay, color board you have. Landscape plan is at the end. So we're using all drought tolerant, no lawn. We've got gravel courtyards, and everything is on drip irrigation.
Okay.
Light fixtures you saw, and they are all there on the elevations. And new and existing square footage, I think, is on the actual floor plan sheet, which didn't print out very well. This is my darker color. I apologize. It didn't print out very well. This was so it's this slightly darker area, that slightly darker area, that one, and here, this,
Okay. Thank you.
as well as the garage. Yeah.
And the square footage of the deck is, we know?
Of this deck?
Yeah.
On here. New deck area, 237.
Okay.
That's yours.
I think that, so is there anything else you need to share with us?
That was
That was it?
everything that you asked for.
Okay. All right. Katie, as I recall, we can take an action if we're satisfied with information provided.
I just needed to clarify from the applicant on the elevation sheets, the solar access. I just had a question about that. Otherwise,
There's also a detail, Fred, on which
Okay.
look at.
Well, let Katie clarify, and then we'll come to the questions from the board after we get public comment. So
That's here.
which drawing, Katie? A2.2?
is this portion existing?
No.
It's proposed?
No, that's not. This is existing, but this trellis is
The
not.
building
But the
is
building is
existing.
existing.
Okay,
Yes.
then it's okay then, as long as this is the only area of addition.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, because this will comply with solar access. This.
Wouldn't, okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. All right, before we go to questions of the board, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Katie, did we get any? I don't see anything on the notes.
There's a card there.
Oh, there is a card, excuse me. Look at that, I'm looking at the other yellow piece of paper. Okay, yes, we do have one speaker, a Celeste Kellerhouse. If you'll come forward, please. And we can have you speak into this microphone. Hi, if you could introduce yourself for the record, and you have 2 minutes to address the board.
Celeste Kellerhouse. Hi. Just about the landscape, and thank you for the pump cover. Just curious what is going to be planted, because this is my site to the ocean. So we were hoping for low.
Everything is. We've got we have an existing orange tree there, and we have dwarf a lemon tree and tangerine tree that is further down the hill from you, and there is nothing tall.
Okay. Okay.
All of that's been taken into
Okay.
consideration.
Thanks.
Uh-huh.
That's all.
That's it? Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else? And Katie, we didn't get any written comment.
No written comment.
All right, thank you. All right, then if no one else comes forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. And Brian, you had a question?
Well, I just wanted to show you detail real quick that might have answered a question you had for me a while ago. And where did I see it?
You want architecture or structure?
That's a grading detail, typical grading detail.
Probably it's on the civil.
There, this is what I wanted to show you. And you were talking about,
During construction.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
that's so.
All right, other questions? Okay, yeah, let's see. I did have, I did have one question about these fixtures. Are these fixtures legally night sky compliance? Do we know?
They, the way that they're manufactured is without, but I'm having them made with night sky.
Okay, yeah. And the only reason I ask is for me, they look fine, but I
Right.
don't want you to get down the road and find out
Right.
they're not what they need to be.
Right.
Okay. And then the other question I had, I want to go back to that deck thing, just to make sure I understand. So the deck we're talking about is 237 square feet or whatever
And
it
there's
was.
a little bit of
And
new
a-
here over the new
okay.
area of the front.
So there's a deck here and a deck here, and on the elevations, just so I understand where they are. So on the elevations,
It's all here. But that's the
that's
existing.
That's existing. So where's that little piece that comes?
Over the front or the back?
No, on the side, this south elevation. So it's right here,
That's
correct?
the new, and then there's a little
And
bit
then
up
there's a
here.
little piece here. This comes, there's a staircase in front of that. Then there's this piece. And the thing that we're seeing on the plan, it's a little confusing to me, but let me get that sorted out. Let's see. Let's go back to, yeah. So that's the staircase.
Going down,
Going down. So that edge wall is 11 feet 7 inches. This is over the top of the first floor, which in plan looks like, let me see it.
That's existing.
Next, which is
The new dining room.
over a portion of this over here.
Exactly.
Okay, so here and here.
Yeah, so here, so this is the
And that
dining
other
room
little
below.
piece of extension of, so there's a deck here. This is an accessible roof, but it's not being treated as a deck,
Yeah,
correct?
because structurally, we can't
Right,
justify
can't
it.
carry the load. So live load is only allocated to here.
Correct.
And the deck covering here is what material, do we know?
Well, again, structurally, we love to put tile, but we can't afford to, so it's going to be some sort of membrane.
Okay, so it'll be a membrane finish up here on
Yeah.
this deck. Okay, that was the only question I had. Other questions? Okay, comments. And the applicant, I assume, is seeking, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, project design approval, correct? Okay, comments.
Dexotex is an excellent product for membrane for your decking. If you're familiar with that. That's my own comment.
Thank you.
I'll make a comment. I like the way you guys have detailed the project, all the choice of lights and the front gate, and the landscape plan looks nice, so I support it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, other comments? Okay, the only concern I have, and I'm going to throw this open for discussion to the board, is our guidelines call for a 15-foot differential between the property line, again, guidelines, not a requirement, but a guideline calls for a 15-foot distance between the property line and the edge of any balcony. And I can pull up the page, I've got it below me here if somebody wants to see it. So it would seem to me if we find this acceptable and we want to give this project design approval, we should put in the motion some acknowledgement that these two sections don't adhere to our guidelines. And the reason that's important, the reason, as I understand it, those guidelines are in play, is the idea was to avoid upper floor decks overlooking into other properties or for privacy issues and noise issues, et cetera, et cetera. And you know that we've seen many projects where we've decided to adhere to those guidelines, and we've required applicants to move their decks back to the 15-foot line. So it would seem to me that if we find this proposed design acceptable, that we'd want to make that statement in any motion of approval. Of course, if we don't, then we would want to ask the applicant to return and show us how they can make the deck back the 15 feet distance. So that was one issue that came up.
I have a follow-up with that,
Yeah.
because I'm assuming we had a long conversation about that, because I'm sure.
I just don't remember.
Yeah, I don't either. What was, so,
This already is an existing deck along the side of the house.
Part of
And-
it's there.
This piece, yeah.
That piece
Right.
there.
yeah.
So the only part that's being added is it is,
It's over first floor that's already existing.
it's right, it is. And so the small part that's being added really doesn't overlook anything. I mean, other than some trees that are already full-grown trees in those,
Along that property line.
right, along that property.
Yeah, I mean, but I understand your.
So my point is, normally we don't allow it, or we go
Okay.
to whatever. So if the board is in agreement that it's okay, I just want to make sure whoever makes a motion, that language is included in the motion, so that if sometime in the future a neighbor comes back and says, why did you guys allow it? Your guidelines say this, et cetera, et cetera. That's why it's kind of.
Well, it's funny, I'm sorry, I bring this up again, because I'm thinking we came up with a conclusion at the time, and I think we need.
It didn't get in the motion, so.
Okay.
So the problem is, if it doesn't get in the motion,
Yeah.
and we read this stuff back.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important when we make motions, if we have lengthy discussions, to get it in the motion, because it puts the applicant in jeopardy of having board members, particularly if a long time has spanned between the time we looked at it and the next time, sitting here trying to reconstruct why we did what we did, and then the applicant sitting here frustrating, thought they had it all figured out, and we change our minds. So that's why it's kind of important when you do a motion to kind of get all the stuff correct, particularly if it's a subject we had lengthy discussion about. Let's see. And the only other thing I wanted to look at very quickly was, I know you said you're going to do the downspouts and overflow steppers, paint them out to match the wall, and I was just going to quickly look at, so you got one there. That'll theoretically,
That's existing.
that'll go away.
That's existing.
That's an overflow. What is
You're
that?
looking at existing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay,
I only said it
so we got one there. All right.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, I got to turn the page. Okay, so that's going to get painted out. That'll go away.
Right.
That'll go away. That's on the side, that'll go away. And that'll go away. Okay, so if they get painted out, they kind of tend to.
Right.
And the color for this thing, the trellis, is going to be what?
We're staining the wood, like the garage doors and stuff. We're going to stain it. Yeah.
And the front door is going to get that, right?
Correct.
And the gate's that.
Right.
Okay. All right, any other
And that'll be
comments?
the stain on the wood on the garage door as well.
Right.
Which is on another sheet, okay.
Well,
All right, any other comments?
it's also a 96% of the floor area ratio, so we also have to make a comment in the motion as
Yeah.
to why we can
Right.
accept.
And Katie, is this one of these lots we have to have a 5-vote or lot size?
No.
No. But
That's
yes,
only if it requires an FAR mod, you have to have a 5.
a 5-vote vote, okay,
yes.
so that's not required. But it's probably a good idea so that we recognize the small amount of added square footage exasperates to some degree the guideline of 85%. So just recognizing the motion, if we choose to give this project design approval.
I'm assuming the neighborhood is, do we have photographs of the existing homes? How, adjacent?
Right here.
Okay, great. That's what I
I
want.
thought we had, oops. That's the house. Here's the neighborhood. I've walked this street many times, so I'm kind of used to it. We used to have an office up on the Riviera. So I'd walk home. I'd walk home. this
Down
way.
those stairs and
Yes.
that street, okay.
The hoof down the stairs,
Yep.
and sometimes up. Okay, if there's no further comments, then the chair would look for a motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve this project.
Give it project design approval?
Give it
Okay,
project
then you'll
design
need to tell us
approval.
that it meets the requirements for,
So we appreciate the design of the house, the remodel designs, the landscape plan, We understand that the deck section does not adhere to the single-family design board guidelines, but because there's a partial existing deck already in place, we can support this. I feel that it meets the good neighbor guidelines, even though it is above the 85% FAR, just because of the way the house is situated on these narrow lots. I like the gates and the other finished things that you have chosen. I think it's going to be a really nice addition to the neighborhood.
Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second?
What-
to the motion?
Second?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Kate.
Where is the project returning, before the full board or consent?
For final, it has to either return to the full board or consent.
Okay, I think it should go back to consent for final
So
approval.
that's part of the motion?
That's part of my motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there further discussion of the motion? Okay. Before we take a vote, just because I've been through here, if your structural engineer can handle it and your budget can handle it, you might want to put a stainless steel pan into these parts that are over the living room, the house. My wife says, you're an architect. You should have solved this years ago. 4 years of terrible rain, it never worked.
Over the decks.
Yeah, it was just, the only way I ever figured it out is to tear everything off, put in a stainless steel pan, and then put my finish on top of it. So you might explore that.
Okay.
Talk to your structural engineer and whatever. It just,
It's almost like a shower
it was a
pan.
10-year nightmare.
It's almost like,
Yeah, it's a shower pan. Yeah, yeah.
Very large.
Yeah, it's a very large shower pan, but I tell you, that was the only way I figured out how to keep water out of our dining room.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, how many times I had to redo the stupid ceiling in the dining room. Okay, anyway, any other comments? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions, so carried. Okay, so when you're ready, you'll go back to consent calendar for final.
Okay.
And there is a 10-day appeal period on the decision today. Oops, am I giving you agenda?
Oh, yeah.
You can take the other 2 sets if you like, but there was a
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 2 is absent. So our next item is scheduled for 3:40. So we're on schedule. Can we proceed, Katie?
No, the next item after that would be scheduled for
Or
4:10.
4:10.
So we can
so
be
we've got to
within
recess to what?
15 minutes prior to that.
So recess till 4 o'clock? What? Okay, so the board will stand in recess until 4 o'clock. Okay. Okay, the chair will bring back to order the Monday, August 6, 2018 Single Family Design Board. We're on item number 3, 420 Terrace Road. If you could introduce yourself, please.
My name's Tom Oxner, project architect.
Thank you. Any action can be taken as sufficient information provided. Project was last reviewed July 30th, 2018. And Katie, I understand this was reviewed at consent calendar?
Yes, that's correct. The project was scheduled for review at consent, and the 2 board members that were reviewing the project were a little uncomfortable with the deck proposal. It's a roof deck, so they wanted to forward the project onto the full board for review.
Okay, thank you. And I assume you're seeking project design approval?
Yes.
Okay, so if you could share with us where you are at this point.
Okay, this is Terrace Road. This does a horseshoe off of Cliff near La Marina. And this property is, it's on the east side of Terrace Road. And I've got some photos here that better illustrate what we've got. We can start with the survey here. So it's a 1-story 50s home with a 1-car garage. And it's just a small. I think it's a 3-bedroom, but they're small bedrooms, and then there's an existing deck off the back. It's a 1-car garage, so we're proposing 50% of the existing square footage to be added to the house. So we're basically retaining the existing footprint and adding to it into the back. This is just the demolition plan. Here are the site photos. So let's see, as we work our way around the property, let's see what we've got. This is from the street, looking at the one-car garage. And let's see, there's a large tree right in the front yard. And photo 1 here is looking kind of back up terrace. Cliff drives down this way, several homes. So you can see there's a 2-story home on the uphill side. And then on the downhill side, there is a 1-story home here. So the idea is to add on 556 square feet of 1-story addition here with a covered patio, and then create a large covered area here, which opens up to the inside. And then this is the portion that we're proposing the roof deck. You can see, looking around, there's the 2-story home up here to the north. And then there's a view looking down towards the south. I think that's 6, right? Yes, that's looking this way. So you can see this home right there is just off in the distance there. So the idea is, let me see, this is the demolition plan. So we're reconfiguring the inside and adding out here. This is the proposed plan. So it's because of the 1-car garage, we're limited to half of the existing square footage. So what we've done is taken the interior living space and opened it up into an outdoor covered patio area with a barbecue, and then this space then would have the deck above it with the spiral staircase. And then the architecture is really just kind of keeping with the existing hipped roofs, and this is the entry right here. So this is the existing, let's see, I'm looking at the garage and the entryway right through here around the corner. We've got, from the rear yard, you can see there's the spiral staircase. This is the deck that's being proposed over that covered area. This is the covered patio off of the master bedroom. And then we've got the south and the west. I think, what is the deck? So the deck, the property below, to the south of the 2nd-story deck. Let me see. I'm going to go back to the aerial photograph. There's no neighbor issues with that privacy situation. You can see this is their yard is on the other side over here. So that deck would be right here, and it really doesn't impose on their private space to the south. This would be, so the deck is right here, and then they've got structures here, and then their private area is really over in here.
Okay.
And that's it. Here's the roof plan. So we can see we've got this hipped roof, which we're carrying around, a little covered porch off the back, and then really matching, doing the best we can with the 8-foot plate heights and getting a little bit of a height in the covered area, and then jumping the ceiling up to with a little bit of volume in the central living space.
Okay. Anything else to present? Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to go back to the site plan. Okay. If there's nothing else, then Chair will go to questions from, or comments from the public. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Katie, did we receive any written correspondence?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. The chair will then close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, do you
Yes.
have on hand the 15-foot guideline verbiage somewhere?
Yes, I do. Yes. I'll pull that out. You can go to the next
I
question.
can get it for you.
Oh, I thought I did. I forgot to bring my binder today. Can you get it for me, Katie, please? Okay. That was on this side. Where is it? Avoid, let's see, upper decks and balconies, 36.2. Avoid or minimize the number of decks that overlook neighboring properties. Locate upper story balconies and decks to minimize the loss of privacy for neighboring properties. Upper story balconies or decks facing the street are usually preferable to upper story balconies or decks facing a yard or adjacent to a neighbor. Techniques to lessen impacts to neighboring property privacy include the following, and then they list a bunch of alternatives. And Katie, what I was looking for was the 15, oh, here it is. So then they give us some guidelines. So first floor property, patios and decks inside setback lines, second story decks and balconies on front property lines, second story decks and balconies on side or rear of a house more than 15 feet from neighbor. These are basically, the guidelines are, these are acceptable solutions. So second story decks and balconies on side or rear of a house more than 15 feet from a neighbor's property line. Second story decks and balconies on side or rear of a house less than 15 feet from property line, less than 3 feet, should be less in size than 21 square feet, 3 feet by 7 feet. Second story decks and balconies on side or rear of a house less than 15 feet from the property line, larger than 3 by 7. And that says mostly privacy impact to neighbors, so that's discouraged. So it's saying that this little diagram, I'll put it in front of everybody so they can see it. So basically, least privacy impact are these things down to that line, and above that line, the guidelines saying that that has an issue. So essentially, it's saying, look, the preference is to keep balconies and decks and second stories in side yards and rear yards 15 feet away from the property line. If they are less than the 15 feet, then they should be relatively small at 21 square feet, 3 times 7, I guess. Second story decks and balconies on sides of rear house more than 15 feet from are acceptable. So basically, the guidelines are saying, board, you need to really think about, as we saw in the earlier application this evening or this afternoon, we have to really think about which ones are going to be acceptable and which ones aren't going to be acceptable. So,
Thank you.
okay, is that, so there are other questions? Anybody want to see this or read it?
I have a question, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
yes.
How far away from the property line is that deck?
Okay, well, let's go back to the site plan, because that was one of my questions. So if I read this correctly, it's back 6 feet, correct? You're saying the deck is this big?
Right.
Okay, so the deck is within 6 feet of the property line. Okay, and so that just to make it clear, because I went out and looked at the site from the street, and I looked down this driveway standing here, and I wasn't quite sure what's happening in here, and I couldn't see, is there windows on that side of this structure? Do we know?
I think there are some small windows.
And what is that, a garage, or what is that? Do we know?
Not sure.
Okay, so there's some house function here.
Yeah.
The yard is over here.
Right, and that was the
And
thinking.
this sits
yeah.
down, if this is 0, is this minus what? Minus 5 feet, minus 4 feet? We don't know.
4 feet. 4
4 feet, we don't know what that elevation differential is. Do we know what the ridge line is, more or less?
Survey here and see. I'm just curious if that showed up. Sometimes they put some numbers on the survey. I'm not seeing that elevation on there. Let's look at the street.
I have another question, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
too.
Yes.
What's the purpose of the roof deck?
Yeah. Okay. So it's really about a view.
Of
They've
what?
got
View to the ocean.
a
View to
view
the
of the
ocean.
ocean. Yeah.
So
yeah.
that would be a deck where people would get up there and party and congregate because they have a view of the ocean.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, there's been some correspondence within the neighborhood, and there
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be an issue. And I think a big part of that is that the neighbor's yard is on the other side of this
Right.
structure, and so it offers an opportunity that doesn't meet, the suggestions of the guidelines, but it's
Yeah. Okay.
Let me go back with one other question on the addition. standing in the street, I did notice that on the, that house, the upper house, there's windows along the side. And what I was trying to get to is your floor plan. Where's your floor plan? So your floor plan has 2 windows here and a window over the tub, and so they'll look like, where are they? Which windows are those?
Those are those 2 windows, and there's the window over the tub.
That's the window over the tub. These are the side lights to
The bed, on either side
the
of the
bed.
bed. Yeah.
And what I don't know logistically is what these, it seemed like there were 3 windows on that side.
So there's a photo of that
And I don't know what
house.
those windows look like.
Yeah, you can see there's the house there.
So that window, I was just looking at these windows because this is sitting back. So I don't know what those windows look at in relationship to the 2 windows over here. Okay. Other questions?
I have another question. What's the square footage of the new proposed deck?
The new proposed deck is
This one.
300 and, let's see, I think I might have it. Look at it's 376.
Right, other questions?
Is a neighbor on the other side of the deck, are they familiar or know that this new deck's going to be built? Are they okay with it?
Yeah, I believe the neighbors have talked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both neighbors on both sides. Neighbors on both sides.
I'm
This
not
one and this
sure.
one?
Not sure about this one. I was referring to this one.
Biggest reason we brought this before is
Right,
one, it was too close. 2, it was just stuck right up there in the air.
Right.
Doing,
you gotta get your microphone on. There you go. Just leave it on, don't touch it. Go ahead.
it was just stuck there up in the air. Oh, I am on now, I can hear myself. And the only reason there, and we asked that same question, why is the deck there, and it's for ocean view?
All right, so we're going to get into comments, but let's finish all the questions. The little circular staircase is going to be what material?
I'm anticipating wood.
Oh,
I'm
it's gonna-
sorry.
not
No, metal.
steel?
Yeah.
Metal, okay.
Yep, metal.
And then the garage door on the front, where am I looking at?
There's
Is
a
there
photo
not-
of it right here.
Right, but the elevator, is that going to change?
No.
So what am I looking at here? This is what,
That was, yeah, it's just shaded, and there's a post in front, I believe.
so what elevation is this?
That is the street, the street elevation. So you're looking right here, and there's a post right there between the 2.
So the garage door is where?
garage door's right here.
And what material is that?
Well, it's intended to stay. It's going to
It's going to be what's in the photograph.
It's going to be what's in the photo. There's 2 doors there that open up. Exactly.
Okay, because I couldn't tell, if this looked like
Yeah.
a piece of glass, that's why I was
it's
asking.
just
the question.
supposed to be a shade, but yeah, there's 2 doors that open up.
Okay, so it's going to be a solid door of some sort.
Yeah, it's not proposing to
And
change.
that window is this window?
That is that window. That gets changed into a bathroom, though, so the window
So it
gets
gets smaller, okay.
Yeah.
And that window is the one we can't see hid by the tree?
Exactly,
Okay.
yep.
But that stays basically the same size?
Right.
Okay, gotcha. All right, other questions? Okay, then let's go to comments. Who has comments? And Joe, you started with comments, because you saw this at consent.
Yeah, I mean, it's above something that you're raising the plate height of that, and then that deck has to sit on top of that. For its use, I just see a deck that's too close to the property line.
Okay.
That I don't think people that are aware of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it applies to our guidelines. Not only is it too close to the property line, it's just purely a party deck. And not only is there privacy issues, there's sound issues. Because you get a bunch of people up there, there's going to be sound carrying. It's going to
Go everywhere.
It's going to be crazy. So I can't support this deck. I mean, it's great to have views, but if they really want to take advantage of the views, they might look at building a 2-story addition with a small little deck to it or something like that. But just to have a big deck stuck up there like that, I don't think it goes by our guidelines. So I can't support it in that location.
Okay, other comments? I have one question, just to clarify. Is this actually a deck, or is this just a slab on grade?
That is slab on grade with a covered roof over
Okay,
it.
so it's not really a deck, it's a terrace. or
It's a terrace,
patio,
yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of a misnomer. Yeah, one of the, I went out and looked and walked this neighborhood, and what's been happening over several years, you can tell, these houses all started as single stories. I think most of them were single stories, but as you look up and down the street, they've all been added to. And part of the challenge with this neighborhood and many of the other neighborhoods on the Mesa is all those homes got started as single story tract houses that were all graded at the same time, and the grades all stepped down. And we've seen this a number of times over the last several years. And so one of the dilemmas is, even if one were saying, oh, okay, there should be no problem having a deck because the next door neighbors are okay with it. The problem is that, a couple of years from now we get a different neighbor, either here or there or wherever, and they go, why in God's name did somebody approve a deck up here, based on your conversation? Yeah. So part of the challenge is we have a graded street like this, our little automobile, okay, and we have a single-story house, and that's the grade, and then it drops down, and we got another single-story house, and then they've added some stuff, it looks like, in the backyard, and they go up here, and then we got a single-story house that got a second story put on it, and then down here at the corner we got another one, and everybody wants a view, okay? And right now what we've got is this is the next house down that wants a second story, because the ones above this, I think, if I'm correct, several of them are all now 2 stories that are above this if you go down that street. So now we're working our way down the hill, and the properties are changing hands, and they're going, oh, okay, well, I want my second story. So part of the dilemma is how do you fit in the desire of somebody to have a deck and a view out to the ocean that's above these guys who knows, a year from now they'll come along and say, I want a second story, and then the board or whoever's sitting here will have the dilemma of having to figure out where does that second story go, and they'll want a deck, and where does that go? And then this house will go, oh, we want a deck, and I think there's a third house down to the corner. We want a deck, because they all want to be out to the ocean. So I guess my concern is at this point, I tend to agree with my colleagues, the way this is presented at this point, I don't think I could support. But what I really would like to see is a profile of all these houses cascading down to show me how it could justify a deck here. And there's a lot of ways. Maybe it doesn't need to be as big as it is. Maybe there's a way to do a deck here that gets smaller, but as it goes to the property and goes down, this is the next guy down the street. There's some effort to get this thing to sit back, some way to get the noise to go up this way rather than that way, but still allow somebody to come up here and get a view and be able to look out to the ocean. And get this dimension so that it works with our guideline of 15 feet back. Maybe there's a way architecturally to do that, without sitting down and taking a few minutes with a scale and figuring this out. I think there's a way to do it to allow this applicant to get their deck, but maybe not as big as it's being presented, and maybe not an exact location that it's being proposed. And then also really understanding, we clearly see from this document that there's buildings in front of that, but I don't have a feel for where those are. Can somebody really see over this ridge to get the ocean view that they're looking for? How far down is that thing? So one of the things is having an understanding profile section through here at some scale so we can kind of figure out, yeah, you can have a deck, but it needs to be configured this way versus the way it's been presented. Because the way it's been presented right now, I agree with you, I couldn't support it. But
well, I know
he's talking to us, but he's hoping you're listening.
I know this isn't New England, but what about a widow's walk?
Well, whatever. I mean, there are other solutions. If somebody really wants a view, and we don't want to deny people the ability to have that, because certainly all the people up the hill got it, prior to these folks. But on the other hand, we have to think about the future. There's, and the other side of the street's the same way. For some reason, as they got closer to Cliff Drive, they didn't get their 2 stories, maybe because the further up the hill you got a better view. Yeah. But now what's happening is these homes are turning over, and they're getting people that are going to, so the next guy at the end is going to be one of these two and say, well, I want my deck and I want my view. Well, understanding where they all are, and we had another case of this situation. I forget whether it was you or whoever, somewhere else on the Mesa, where again we had these whole stepping, single-story tract houses that got built in the 60s or 70s or whenever, and they're all now trying to go to 2 stories and have views and all that kind of stuff. So understanding how they position, even on the plan form, where they position themselves on the site is important. So yeah, you could maybe approve a deck up here, but you wouldn't approve it down here because the next guy down here has got his house over here and his deck wants to be there, and maybe you have to understand how they get offset as we march down the hill. That's why this kind of understanding, and certainly this kind of aerial photograph with a little more extension in it, kind of helps us understand what everybody's going to be subject to.
Well, I also think the size of the deck is
Right.
It's
It's
somehow it
probably
has
too
to,
big. Yeah, it's probably too big. And particularly because they have a nice patio already underneath with the barbecue pit and all that other kind of stuff. Is there really a need for 4th of July, go watch the fireworks on the roof for a huge deck?
But wouldn't the approved size be only about 6 or 7% of the proposed size?
What do you mean?
Well, I thought he was talking about a 300 square foot deck, and what we would approve would be 21 square feet. So
Well, if you have to
to the
read
property line.
Yeah, but if you have to read the guidelines, so I don't know that it's 21 square feet, but it,
It doesn't need to be, it's just a suggested.
Yeah, it's just
Ah,
a suggestion.
okay.
So there is the reason it's a guideline is it allows us the opportunity to try to accommodate the applicant at the same time meet our obligation to understand how these components fit into a neighborhood. And this neighborhood is probably far different than the project that we saw on the first item tonight, where we did approve a deck shorter than the 15 feet, but we had an existing condition, we had existing deck, et cetera. So that had different circumstance. So one of the jobs our board has, I believe, is we have to look at it in the context of the particular neighborhood. In this particular neighborhood, we have a history of homes that were all built at the same time, I think, based on my understanding of forensic architecture. And they were all, single stories, and now they're changing, and people want second stories, and they want balconies and whatever. So one of our jobs is to try to accommodate the applicant, but at the same time, try to do this in such a way that current owners and future owners don't have a big problem with what gets approved. And, some of the homes up the street were built second floor way before this board existed. But again, part of the reason this board was put together is to deal with this kind of situation. So, given that discussion, is there a way we can make a motion to give the applicant some guidance? Because I sense there's no support for what's being presented, but the applicant probably should get some guidance for what might be acceptable, or at least what areas might be explored to get to an acceptable solution.
I could try to make a motion.
Okay.
Is this,
if you're not going to give it concept design review, you don't need the yellow sheet.
yeah, I can't approve it. I'd like the applicant to come back with the viewing deck to be 15 feet away from the property line based on the recommendations of the design guidelines, and that the deck be reduced in size.
Can I make just a comment before that?
We've got I'm trying to make a motion on the floor. I'll let you come in a minute. I would suggest to the maker of the motion that you allow the applicant to study a solution that keeps the deck back the usable deck back 15 feet from the property line, that the applicant demonstrate to us either in section or profile the implications of the deck locations with relationship to the properties to, the south and to the north, and on the site plan in relationship to the immediate southern property line in terms of its existing ridge line and existing floor line.
I'd accept that. Also, I still think it's too big because it's a deck, it's a party
And
deck.
so your motion is to
It has to be
ask them to
reduced.
study a reduction in the size of the deck.
And what you said,
Okay.
and what you said.
Right. Does everybody understand the motion that's being assembled?
Can I clarify, is it returning before the full board or consent?
Well, this is going to help your creative juices. I love to see it on the full board.
Okay, so the full board, motion is for the full board. Is there a second to that motion?
I second. Yeah.
Okay, there's a second to the motion. Before we take an action on the motion, the applicant wants to.
Well, thank you for, yeah, so, okay, I just wanted some clarity. And what I'm hearing is that we've got some guidelines, and the guidelines are suggesting that 15 feet is our, kind of our rule of thumb. And it would also suggest that that's a rule of thumb because in some situations you've got built-in privacy that might mitigate that 15-foot condition. So I'm suggesting that in this case, because of the positioning of the neighboring structures, that their private space might lend itself to a little bit of a reduction of that 15-foot mandatory, or not mandatory, but suggested distance. And that was the whole purpose of starting with the 6 foot. There doesn't seem to be a neighborhood compatibility problem with the neighborhood itself. And the actual setting here suggests that maybe that 15 feet could be reduced. So
Well, we're going to, the motion is going to allow you to go to explore that. I think what's going to be helpful in a return is really giving us an understanding of what these are, because that's your argument, that there is something blocking that. But this idea of really how does this thing fit into the pattern of all the other houses is going to be most helpful. That's the argument that if you can make that argument, then you maybe come back and say, look, 10 feet's going to work,
It's just that I
and
heard
whatever.
the motion was specific about maintaining the 15 feet. And
Well,
I was
he
just hoping
reworded
for-
it. It's a recommendation.
Okay.
Recommendation, okay? Katie, Kathleen, you get that clear? Does everyone understand the motion? Do we need it reread?
I think so, but I'm wondering if there's another option that's semantic, and that is instead of a deck, you do a structure like a greenhouse, which is not a deck, and maybe that would be permissible.
Okay, well, we'll let him explore it. See
Okay.
I think he understands where we're
Okay.
trying to go. Okay, do you want the motion reread?
No.
Okay. Anyone else? Everybody understand what we're voting on? Okay, that's the motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Kathleen?
Did you still want him to require like an aerial image of the neighborhood with the
I think an expanded aerial image of the homes below here would be most helpful, in addition to this
Site section, profile section. Yeah.
profile section would be most helpful. Okay, that's the motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, so carried. Okay, so when you get that information, you can come back.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, let's go to, we don't have an applicant. Where are we supposed to be? 440. Okay, so we're still okay, but we don't have an applicant yet.
You know, I was thinking.
So we're going to recess for a few minutes until the applicant arrives. Back to order the Monday, August 6, 2018 Single Family Design Board. We're on item number 4, 127 East Valerio Street. This is here for a second concept review. The project was last reviewed June 11th, 2018. If you could introduce yourselves, please.
Yes, I'm Rich Unterman.
Oops, you need to get your own microphone.
I'm Rich Unterman, one of the owners.
Okay,
Johnny Hirsch, Consulting Design.
okay, thank you.
And Jarrett Gorin, the planner.
Okay. Mr. Miller, if you could read, do we have our last action? Do we have that yet? Maybe Katie's getting that. If you could read our last action, please. From June 11th.
Okay.
Okay.
The board appreciates the proposed style of architecture. However, the board requests the applicant to be sensitive to the architecture of adjacent buildings in the neighborhood theme for compatibility and consistency, specifically with the corner windows. Number 2, provide a color board. Number 3, provide photographs to support the consistency of the proposed architecture. Number 4, the board suggests the applicant begin and maintain communication with adjacent neighbors to support good neighbor policy. Number 5, provide a more detailed landscape plan, including fence and hedge height details on the northeast side of the property, and verify if a modification is required for the proposed hedge height. Number 6, provide floor plans and elevations, including complete and improved graphic details of existing on the plans. Number 7, provide and clarify details of the turnstile and noise decibel levels. Number 8, provide a catalog and cut sheets of the turnaround. Action taken by Miller, seconded by Farrell.
Thank you.
Last meeting,
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Martisha, you excused yourself or you recused yourself. Do you need to do the same for this meeting?
This is on Valerio Street.
Yep, sorry.
Okay, so you have a property within 300 feet. Okay.
Yep.
And
Right?
neighbor.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, let's see. So if you could share with us how you address those comments, please.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with the neighboring architecture again. I think we went through these last time, but I'll just do it again to refresh everybody. Really, the architecture we're talking about here is all on our side of the block. Across the street from us, we've got some big parking lots for the church that's over there and the church itself. So we're not trying to be compatible with that. So here's basically, this is a view down the street from the Anacapa side looking at our side of the block. And then as you go up the block, we've got this one-story house that's there on the corner. And then there's another little one-story, I think this is a duplex next to that house. And then you start getting into these two-story duplexes. So this is next door to that house. You can sort of see each building in the side of each photograph there. This is our existing structure. And then here's the structure next to us, and there's one of those corner windows we were talking about last time to pick up on our architecture. This is the next building up the street. And then finally, this is the last building up the street, which I don't know if that was originally a duplex or not, but it's a single-family house now on the corner. And then this is the other corner looking back down that block at what you see, including some of the trees that are there. So that's the photographs, which we believe they'll show you when you see our architecture that it's consistent with that surrounding architecture. I'm going to let these guys go through the architecture and landscape details in more detail. As to the turnstile thing, we just decided to get rid of that for the parking. We have a normal just back out paved turnaround, and Rich will cover it when he talks about the landscape, but we were able to do it in a way that doesn't overwhelm that back area with pavement. It fits in really nicely, and we don't need that turnaround. And there were some questions about easements and things at the last hearing, and just want to remind the board that there are no easements over our property for anybody else to use our property, but we do have easements over the adjacent properties to get from our property over to Santa Barbara Street. So anyway, that's the only stuff relating to the driveway that we really talked about. So I'm going to let Johnny talk about the architecture changes since the last hearing, and then Rich is going to cover the landscaping because we've got a lot more detail about that.
Okay.
Okay. So I think you can see by the photographs of the adjacent structures that there was originally a series of post-war duplexes built by a single developer, and they are now in various stages of originality and change. And what we realize when we look at our project is that there are elements of that charming building that we don't want to lose. What is currently the access to the upstairs is a stairway and balcony, which makes a strong graphic element across and down. We've picked up on that in our designs. Well, if you don't mind, you have those, but Rich has colored some, and they look nicer. So the elements that I'm talking about is a stucco piece that's proud of the rest of the building. What we're still trying to accomplish here is breaking up the massing so it doesn't look like one big box. So we're doing that in various ways, stepping architectural elements, stepping the building itself with a small addition at the front, which will be Gail's studio, changing the formal entrance from what was stairways up to the upstairs to a downstairs more friendly entrance. And we are, as we said, kind of picking up on the graphic elements and breaking up the massing both in the footprint and also in the material palettes. We're introducing some horizontal cedar siding along with stucco and some arbor trellis work in various spots. We're also proposing new windows and doors and placements for those new windows and doors, trying to be sensitive to those corner windows where it's appropriate. We did notice that as nice as those metal corner windows are, I mean, I love them personally. They're not the greatest for performance, as we know, in terms of energy efficiency, but also if you realize that neighbor directly adjacent to this property, the old entrance, if we look at the existing sequence of circulation, you would go up, and as you hit the landing, the first landing, you're looking directly into his corner window. And when you're in the building, both corner windows face each other. And so there was a significant lack of privacy. So programmatically, that has changed with that side of the window, but that side of the building. But we tried to pick up that corner window element, introducing it to the other side, where it makes more sense, and we're not looking directly into somebody else's living room. So we believe all the moves we're making are sensitive to the context of the neighborhood, improving the actual building itself in quality and in function, and not proposing anything grotesque. In fact, we're reducing the square footage overall of the whole structure.
That's the front of the house right there, the east.
This is the front.
Got it.
Correct. And we're being actually prone to quality all around the structure. We're not just putting a decent facade on. We're wrapping this material around. In fact, in the areas where they're most evident to the neighborhood, where it's a pretty rich palette. Rich.
Okay.
Well, there's also some pretty significant architectural features that wrap, not just materials.
Well, the massing breaks up in all three dimensions and in material applications.
Okay. You have anything else to present?
The landscape.
Oh, okay.
So it's a narrow, deep lot, 120 feet by 55, with the building straddling it and windows on both sides facing out with no view. So we're going to create a view by developing essentially 5 outdoor rooms so that you enter, and instead of entering straight up, you'll walk.
Get the microphone.
Okay. Yeah.
Can't hear you. And the other thing
I'm
that's
sorry.
helpful is if you just use
Good
that.
idea. Okay. So we're going to create 5 little outdoor rooms for the people inside to look at. And right now the thing goes straight up with the stairs. We're going to do sandstone, retain the sandstone wall, have it bend and swoop around past what we have learned to love in our own house, a butterfly and hummingbird garden of wild, drought-tolerant plants, and into an entry outdoor space that will be defined by the pavement and the planting around it and the trees overhead that will serve as both a formal entry and as an outdoor morning sun. The sun is in this quadrant in the morning. On the back side, opposite our kitchen and family room, will be a patio for dining, being with friends, enjoying the sun, etc. More formal, and an outdoor art patio opposite the studio, which will be mostly gravel and a place to do our projects, and of course the car park. And we have street trees, the jacaranda in the front, some olives to create a lighter, looser kind of structure, an existing tree, and some trees in the back to shade this relatively hot outdoor space now. We're going to use a self-draining pavement and
I think the hedges were also a question last time. And this hedge here, this is the Anacapa side. That's our hedge, and it's, how tall is it? It's about 8 feet tall. We'll retain that existing hedge. And then the hedge on the Santa Barbara Street side, that's on our neighbor's property. And I think it's about 12 feet tall. But that's not part of our project.
but we like it.
Okay. Anything else you need to present?
I think the only question I have is if the boards, we have material boards. That was another question.
You had a color board, so is that it?
Yeah, we have a color
Yes. So it's a very copacetic palette in the warm.
Dated yourself. Copacetic.
I am older.
So the main body color is?
The main body color is the oyster.
Okay.
And then there is trim color on the larger architectural projections, and then there are the windows will be a bronze aluminum, and then the cedar siding will have a natural. We'll use a UV protectant to keep it as natural and stay natural as possible.
And then just to clarify, the fireplace is going away, right?
It is going away.
So the material on this new element is what?
That's the Santa Barbara sandstone. That is merely a decorative marker for the entrance.
So it is the pattern is going to be what?
Stacked, cut stacked.
Cut stacked.
Yeah.
Okay. As indicated on that
Yes.
sketch. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So it's Santa Barbara sandstone.
Correct.
Okay. Right. Okay. Anything else?
So we can only get comments again today because we're noticed for concept, but ideally we'd like to come back for just one more hearing and do preliminary and final at that time. So if there's any really specific things that we want changed, just please make them very specific so we can address them before we come back, because we would like to just develop these plans out.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, Katie, the reason for that is?
Has not undergone the PDA plan check.
What's that?
It has not undergone the PDA plan check.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. Anything else to present? No? Okay. We do have one public speaker slip, and I do have, get the same address here. I do have one letter who's not the same as the speaker, so I'll address that first. Has everyone, I assume, seen this letter from a Rebecca Harden? You all have that? Yep. Have you had a chance to look at it? Mm-hmm. And Katie, when did we, as board members, did we get this electronically or no?
Kathy, can you verify if
Yeah,
that
you
was
emailed it. I think you emailed it. Yeah, I got it.
We got it there, didn't we?
I
For
got
some
an
reason,
email.
I didn't see it, but that's okay. Okay.
Yeah, if you look on the second page, it has when it was sent.
Okay.
Actually, sorry, that was
All right.
right.
Does anybody, I need a minute to read that letter before we go to the public speaker. Is that the only other communication we had?
That's it.
Okay. Can we take just a minute? I just need a minute because I didn't, for some reason, I didn't see this letter ahead of time.
I've read it.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to need one of you, or one of those microphones vacated, please. For John, is it Kuznecki? Have I said it correctly? Kazinka. Okay, if you could come up here and please, for the record, say your name, and then you'll have 2 minutes.
I'm John Kaisenga at 131 East Valerio.
Okay, I have 2 minutes to address the board.
Okay. Can I put this where?
Sure. Let's set it right here.
I'm going to let you guys manipulate that so that I can spend my 2 minutes.
Okay.
Functionally. First of all, I wanted to just mention that you saw Becky Hardin's letter, and I sent a multiple-page letter, which nobody made reference to. Actually, it's the second communication I've sent. I sent a letter quite a while ago, and I also have a multiple-page letter regarding different elements of what's being proposed. I didn't hear any reference to that.
So this was the letter that we had at the last hearing, correct? Okay, but there's not been one since.
Yes, there has been one since.
So there's an additional letter to this June 21st letter.
Yes.
Have we seen that document?
It's a multi-page thing.
Did we get this letter?
During a previous review.
Okay, so this is dated July 10th. Okay. Right, go ahead.
So you can see the different subheadings on there. So my concern is, first I wanted to thank the owner for eliminating the mechanical turnstile. To me, that would be very objectionable. I have, can I borrow this pointer?
Yes.
Okay, maybe I'd do it on here. So let me get oriented here to see where I'm at. So I'm right here. This turnstile was going to be right in this area, and my deck up here with French doors that I open and have opened right now is right here. And so the noise from that would be very objectionable, and so I'm glad that's eliminated. And also that he's chosen not to encroach on this turnaround, which makes it difficult for a whole range of, for tenants to move in and park here, for people who are delivering, service people, et cetera. So I'm appreciative for that. So I wanted to just back up for a minute. It's unclear to me why the city is allowing people to turn a duplex into a single-family unit when there's so much housing need in the city. For example, this unit as a single-family unit will be good for 2 people, 3 people, and right now there can be 8 people there. If the owner chooses to put a place over here, that might be room for one other place, but we're going from 3 people, from 8 people down to 3 people, and I'm not sure why the city, it seems to me.
We'll answer that in a few minutes.
Thank you. Okay, so one of the other objections that I have is to this proposal is if there's a unit, and I realize this is before the fact, and this is not even on the table today, but I want to bring it up because it bears on privacy issues. The only place, there's 10 feet right here between each of these units. And the only place I have a view is out to the southwest. If this is a 2-story unit, I will have no view looking out that way. You know, I'm looking at a neighbor here, I'm looking at a neighbor here, I'm looking at a neighbor over here, which has changed since I moved in 18 years ago. So, and if there's a unit that's put up here, it will look right into what little privacy that I have in this particular area right here.
So if you could wrap up, sir, please.
Yeah. So let me just look at my note here and make sure that, and I realize that's getting a little ahead of myself, but anyway, in regard to the changes that he's proposing for the building, you know, a lot of it looks really nice. I was concerned about the turnstile. I still am concerned about the privacy issue and views.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You want that? Okay, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the project? Seeing no one else come forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions and comments. The applicant has requested that we give them some careful guidance. et cetera. So before we get there, I want to cover this issue of lost units, so you clearly understand what's going on. As far as I understand it, and Katie, you can clarify if I'm speaking incorrectly. Just so you understand, the house on the corner at Valerio and Santa Barbara Street that was turned in from a duplex to a single-family home, this board reviewed that. That is apparently allowed under the zoning that's allocated to these homes that are along that side of Valerio Street. They're single residential units. That's how it's zoned. They're not zoned as duplexes, as I understand it. So that's what has allowed applicants to turn these from 2 units into a single unit. So that's an issue that's not the purview of this board. That's an issue that citizens need to take up with the city council. That's the process. That's not, this board does not have jurisdiction over zoning changes or requests to address zoning changes. That's not something this board does. Our primary job is to make sure that the structures architecturally are compatible with the neighborhood, that we deal with the size, bulk, and scale, material compatibility, landscaping, et cetera. But zoning issues are not our purview. I'm sorry, Katie, am I correct so far?
I was just going to add, this is zoned R2, so that means it's a 2-unit. You can have 2 units on the lot.
Or 1 unit. Right?
Or 1 unit, which
Okay.
would be a less intense use. So you can't have more than 2, but you could have something that's
Okay, so,
less
but it
intense.
allows that discretion of the owner of the property.
It could be single
Okay.
family or a duplex.
Or a duplex. So in this case, the owner has chosen to turn it back to a single family. So unless you as citizens want to go have that discussion with the city council, that's where the rules are, and we don't have control over that. The issue of building a second floor on the garage is now subject to a state law called the accessory dwelling unit. That this board has no control over. They can erect anything they want there without anybody's review. It's reviewed at a staff level. They have a process they go through. This board is not allowed to discuss it. We're not allowed to look at them. They can be within less than 5 feet of the property line. They can sit on an existing garage. They can be constructed in any manner they want. If the citizens of Santa Barbara are concerned about that, this is something that has to be taken up at the state level, state legislative level. We had a visit some time ago from the state senator who basically promoted this through the legislature. I attended a meeting where I did express my concern about the same issues you are, and he basically said, go take a hike. It's state law. It's a legislator from Silicon Valley, a senator, and there was other co-sponsors of the bill. I don't have all the details. So it's completely out of our hands. So, you or anyone else that has that condition can put an ADU in, an accessory dwelling unit, and it gets no review by anybody. Essentially, it just has to be. No.
Sorry, we're not supposed to have a conversation.
Not having
between the board
conversations
the
back and
public.
forth. This is a public meeting. Public conversation is now closed. I'm just trying to explain to you, as I understand, the circumstances by which we have to operate. So this board has no purview over accessory dwelling units, period. If they're proposed on top of an existing garage or even part of a new garage, we don't get to say anything about it. So it's a discussion that you and your legislators need to have a discussion about, but it's not, even the city council doesn't have purview over. So with that, so I think that also addresses Ms. Hardin's letter, who basically that was her objection, is reduction of housing units from 2 units down to 1 unit, et cetera. So with that, the chair will close public. I think I already closed public comment. Let's bring it back. Let's go directly to questions. Who has questions of the applicant?
I have a question,
Yes,
Mr. Chair. So I know that we cannot look at it, but I'm just curious. Are you proposing an ADU over that garage?
Not in
No, that's not part of the scope of our project.
Okay. Or a second story?
We're not doing anything to the garage.
That's what you see.
Okay.
We just
thank
have to address what's been presented to us.
Right, okay. I just was thinking maybe I missed something.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Same thing.
I want to make sure I understand. Let me go back to the site plan. So the configuration of this new paving is basically, looks like essentially the same pattern or same area that's already there, correct?
Same area, different material. Correct.
Different material, and that the turnaround, the hammerhead turnaround that functions today is what it will be in the future, correct? Because you've taken away the turntable thing.
I don't know that that's legally a hammerhead turnaround.
But I mean, it'll operate the same way it does today, correct? Okay, all right. And then the jacaranda trees are street trees, they remain, they're going to be the same.
They're new.
Oh, these are going to be new.
Yeah.
Wait, and remind me, what's there now? What do we, oh, there's the front.
There's a straight-on view of the front.
Where am I at?
There it is.
Nope.
It's got that really specific.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to introduce a parkway and trees.
Correct.
Okay, so has that been reviewed by Parks yet?
No. But there are jacarandas on the street.
Okay. And the only reason I ask that is, Katie, as I understand it, even though we may make comments about whether that's acceptable or not, the ultimate decision about those trees is through Parks, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you'll know you have to go to see those guys. Okay. And then the other question I had was clear on, I think we went through this before, is on the, let me go to your elevations. On one of these, I think it was your perspectives looked a little different than what the elevations
Oh,
showed.
the model, right. Yes.
One of these showed something going on over here, but the way I'm reading the elevations, that's just a solid panel, correct? Where am I at? On the second floor.
Yes, the elevation would roll over the model,
There.
I believe.
Yeah, that's just a solid.
Correct.
Yeah,
That's that
that's a little
wood.
pop out. That's a
Yes.
little wood thing.
That's
Okay.
cedar type.
Okay. And the windows are going to be a clad system of some sort?
They're actually aluminum, bronze aluminum.
Bronze
not,
aluminum.
Not clad.
Not
Yes.
clad, so they are bronze aluminum,
Yes.
and the door is going to be?
Same.
Same.
Same
Okay.
manufacturer, yeah.
Right. And then, did we cover exterior light fixtures?
Not in the notes. We didn't cover them here. There's nothing shown on here. We can bring that back for.
Are you going to do surface mount, or are you going to
There'll
do
be-
downlights
No,
under these?
we're going to do wall-mounted sconces
Okay.
with low light
Okay.
emission.
And then how are you dealing with gutters and downspouts and all that kind of stuff?
Downspouts on the high portion. I'm sorry, gutters on the high portions, and we'll route down alongside in the same dark bronze coloration.
Okay.
Color.
And then are you venting, are you venting the roofs, the attic roof system, or what are you
That's an
doing?
existing roof framing, and I'll have to look at the.
So how my question is, if you're going to vent it, what do the vents look like, and where are they located?
Right, they're not represented.
Given that these are hip roofs, so.
Right.
Because sometimes they can get.
Well, what my proposition would be to do eve venting underneath, so you're not
okay.
you're not seeing any of those.
Okay.
And I would do the calculations so that there's the intake and the exhaust.
Yeah, because of the fire issue. Okay.
Yeah, well, there are
Let's
fire
see,
issues.
and this is an outside water heater?
Flash heater, yes.
Okay, and that's inside the setback or within the setback? Or outside the setback? Do we know?
It actually doesn't matter under Title 30. You can have mechanical equipment encroach into a setback as long as it's at least, is it 3 feet?
I believe it's 3 feet.
Yeah,
3 feet,
You
okay.
can't get closer than 3 feet.
Okay, and then, no air conditioning units?
We are going to have air conditioning.
And do we have a place for where the condenser is going to go?
In the
Oh,
back.
Back on the roof.
So we have a,
what you're saying.
you need to speak closer to the.
Yes, we are going to air condition it.
Okay, and so
and
do we have a
then-
roof plan somewhere?
Yes.
Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Should have been.
No, it should be back this way.
Right before this.
Yeah, there is a roof plan.
There is it.
It's way near the end. These
After the sections.
drawings that are so extensive nowadays. There it is.
Okay.
I'm sorry, yeah.
So-
they'll be back here, in this area here.
Okay, so the front is,
The front
Valerio is that
yeah,
way?
They'll be back here on the
Okay,
roof.
all right, so they have to meet the decibel.
Yes,
kind of
we'll do
lucky
that, no
distance,
trouble.
okay.
That's easy nowadays.
Okay, and then, where'd the color board go? Did we understand what that paving material is? What did
Not
you
on
say?
this color board.
It's self-draining pavers, concrete pavers.
Oh, okay, so it's going to be a pervious paving
Correct.
pattern of some sort, of some color, we don't have that yet?
Correct, no.
Okay.
If you have a preference, we'll do it.
Well, no, it just needs to kind of be on this.
It'll be copacetic.
You can do
It
that.
needs to be on these documents. And then these are little raised planters, correct?
Yeah, just redwood.
Okay, and that's a concrete curb? Yeah?
No, that's the old fence.
Oh, so that's going to be a little fence?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's existing or new?
That'll be new.
And that's wood or chain
No,
link or?
it'll be wire with vines on it.
Okay, and then this, I read the note here, that's got vines on the existing fence. You already talked about the hedge, and the paving material out here is going to be?
Concrete.
Concrete, okay. And the walkway here is concrete?
No, it'll be stone.
Stone,
Sandstone,
to
yeah.
match the
Correct.
stone wall, okay.
We'll have fun with that.
Okay, and is this a little outdoor fire pit or
Yeah.
barbecue pit? Okay. All right, any other questions? Okay, if we have no further questions, let's go to comments. The applicant's requesting we give specific comments so that they're able to return and get project design approval and final approval in the same meeting if we so agree.
Yeah, I think it's a great job. I can support. I think you're bringing life back to this house that's kind of dated from post-war. I like the landscaping. I think adding those trees in the front will be a great addition. Hopefully we'll have enough water. I have to make a comment regarding the issue about density. It's not really related to this, but I've been going to several urban planning meetings about density and housing use and the so-called housing shortage in Santa Barbara. And I've done studies of other cities that are high density. And what I've discovered, and especially in this town, is that when they approve high density, they're just as expensive as the low density. And what happens is that a city becomes an expensive high density town as opposed to an expensive low density town, because the property is not a moral issue or a social issue. It's a commodity. It's a investment tool. And I think the only way that this city can ever control the price of housing is if they impose some kind of rent controls, or they make it illegal for outside investors to come in and provide and invest in multiple units of property and make them investment tools, because people are in it to make money off the property. And I think that's overlooked. And another thing I'd like to say is, if you kind of want to see the future of this town, you should go on Gillespie Street off of San Andreas. I went over there. I was invited to dinner. There's a lot of multiple apartments there. The parking is very skimpy. It took me over 20 minutes to find a parking spot. I almost gave up. And I had to call my host and say, there's no parking. I can't park here. And she had a secret spot where I could go. But so that's my comment about this high density stuff, because it's a false narrative, but it's out of my hands. So anyway, I can approve this project.
Right, other comments?
I think overall it's a great project, and I like the landscape plan. I like the way that you're updating the look of the building. One thing I don't think was covered is if you fall under like Tier 2 or Tier 3 stormwater. So you might want to consider using permeable pavers where you're shown concrete paving, but it might help you with getting through the process. But
We also have a rain barrel on both sides for the downspouts to.
great, yeah, I saw that. So.
Katie, has that determination been made yet? Do they fall under the Tier 2? I don't think it's Tier 3.
I'd have to double check.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other comments?
I like the project. I like their design for breaking up the mass. I think that really is a very constructive way to go.
Okay, thank you.
I like it too, yeah. Nice.
I think that they address my issues about the corner windows. I think the solution adheres to that, addresses that issue in terms of the relationship to the other buildings on the street, on that side of the street. I will be looking forward specifically to look at solutions for gutters and downspouts. In my experience, sometimes that will make or break a good design in terms of their location and how they get the water off the roofs. Certainly be interested in how you camouflage or insert or whatever the condenser units for air conditioning on the roof. Also be very interested in the wall sconces or lighting fixtures, particularly as they comply with night sky compliance requirements for the city. And I'll also be interested in the treatment of the stucco finish, whether it's steel troweled or whatever. That's kind of important. And I'm also assuming that there may be some landscape lighting involved in this project, particularly at the steps coming up from the street. There may be some need to do that. So understanding what the lighting plan for the landscaping is like would be important. So those are, I think, my comments. So if there are no further comments, the chair would look for a motion. And it is only a motion with comments only. We're not able to give it project design approval today. But also in your motion, you need to include whether or not for project design approval and certainly final approval, whether the project comes back before the full board or to the consent calendar.
I can make that motion,
Okay,
I think.
thank you.
Okay, so we appreciate your overall design of the building and the way you've broken up the bulk of it. The landscape plan is definitely acceptable. This should come back to consent, but when you come back to consent, please show where gutters and downspouts are going to be, the location of the AC units, maybe a sample of your lighting fixtures that you're going to have around. Also, if there's going to be landscape lighting as well. And we'd also like to see a sample or picture of what type of a stucco finish you're going to have on it.
Okay, that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, is there further discussion of the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, so carried. Okay, we'll see you at consent calendar.
Thank you.
Okay.
This belongs to you. Do you want this?
One set? Yeah, you can take the other two, otherwise I'll second.
That all goes to Katie. Let's see, that should go back to Katie. That goes to Katie, but if you have to make additional information, you should keep it. And then
No, we
bring
don't need it. We're okay if she wants it.
I don't know what stays.
You keep this.
Sure. Thank you all.
Okay, that goes to Katie. And I think all this goes to Katie. Okay.
I'd like you to talk. Oh, it's relevant. This is going to raise property values.
Well, guys, we're on the air. Okay. All right. We're at 5:10. We're right on time. Okay. So we're at item number 5, 3315 Los Pinos Drive. This is here for comments only. The project requires staff hearing officer review, and this is a new item, so I'll be needing to read into the record a project description. If I could have the applicant introduce himself, please.
Chris Cottrell, architect.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. This is a proposal for improvements to an existing 2,564 square foot, two-story single residential unit with an attached 438 square foot, two-car garage. Proposed project includes an interior remodel of a roof pitch change at the north roof face above the entry, new exterior siding, new trellis, new second-story deck, and new windows, new doors and windows. A minor zoning exception is requested to allow an increase in height of the front setback, height within the front setback. Staff hearing officer review is requested to allow proposed second-story deck to encroach within the required front setback. There is no new square footage proposed to the existing residence. The existing 3,002 square feet of development on an 8,424 square foot lot is 91% of the maximum allowable floor to lot area ratio. This is here for comments only because it requires a project staff hearing officer review for modifications. So with that, we can have the applicant share with us what the project's about.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just reprinted this cover to show the actual outline of the roof wasn't showing up, so that's all that's changed in this one. We have a 1 and 2 story family residence on Los Pinos Drive. This was new to me. The setbacks in this overlay, the USS overlay, are 40 feet on, and this is a corner lot, so it's 40 feet from both streets. So just to show you where you could actually build a house on this, it's this little rectangle right here. So anything that we do here, this is an existing house, anything we do requires a modification.
So is it 2 or 1?
There's 1 mod and then 1 MZE. I'll show you where they are. This is the view from Los Pinos. This is the front door. So we're keeping the existing roof with the exception of over the front door. We're just going to pitch break at the ridge just to lift that up. And I'll show you the elevations. So that's the MZE, and that's right here. And then the I'm sorry, that's right here. Reverse, there's Los Pinos. Then on the backside, there's an existing exterior access to a covered deck that's off the master on the 2nd floor. We're going to take away that stair, but any change to that requires this modification. So all we're going to do is just convert that area to a deck. So take away the stair and convert that to a deck. I'll show you the other. It's this. It's a pretty cobbled together house right now. There are multiple different siding elements going on. So we're just going to kind of go in and clean it up. It's not a big, there's no new square footage. All we're changing is that pitch break in the front and then that stair in back. And then there's 2 new trellises, one over the garage and then one in back from the family room to the backyard space. There is a landscape plan in the works. We don't have it today. In essence, they're going to clean up what's there. It's not a massive change. Take you through this real quick. That existing house. So the 2-story element's just over the garage. There's a straight stair up. All we're doing is cleaning up the inside, no square footage change. So there are these 2 pop-outs right there, so that plate gets really low over those 2, and that's why the entry feels so low. So we're going to do the pitch break just right at those pop-outs. Revised plan, again, no change. We're reconfiguring the master suite a little bit, which entails moving. There were 2 windows over the garage. We're just going to split those between the vanity. Right there, and there's that new deck off the master. So there used to be a stair down there, and now it's just a deck. Existing skylights to remain, roofing to remain. There you can see that review of the 2 new trellises and that pitch break. I think we have some bigger elevations to look at on A21. Okay, so the exterior scheme is new shingles, and I think we're going to keep those natural and then do a white trim, kind of a cottagey style. New chimney caps, replace doors and windows, garage door to remain. And then here's the view of that little lifted front entry. So if you look at this old guy, you can just see where we're breaking that and lifting that up just to give that a little bit of breathing room in there. And like the previous project, all we can have is comments only today. I would love to do the same thing that you did there, is get specific enough comments so we could come back for a PDA final.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Before we go to questions of the board, comments, we'll open it for public comment. We have a public speaker, and I thought I had in my hands here some letters.
Yeah, we should have 2 letters of written
I don't know
public
where
comment.
they went to. They're right here? Oh, okay. Okay. So we have 2 letters. Before I have the public speaker come up, everyone has had a chance to read these letters?
Sorry, they are.
So they are mine, okay. So, so one of the comments is an email, apparently an email One of the persons here will be speaking in a moment. And then there's another email, I guess, from a Courtney Endelman. So opposed to any second-story deck, two-story which towers over our single home located at 3326 Montgomery Drive. Under the home, it's on all homes. Okay. All right. Anybody else need time to look at the letters? If not, is it Rita Gupta? If you'll come forward, please, and speak into one of these microphones. Yeah, you can speak there, speak into this microphone, and if you just say your name for the record, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
My name is Ritu Gupta, and I own 3332 Madrona Drive, which is right behind 3315 Los Piñas.
I'm going to have you stop just for a second so that we understand where your house is in relationship to the project. So this is Los Pinos. This is Anamola. You're here?
Yeah, right.
You're down.
Yeah.
You're towards the State Street.
Right.
Okay, so that's your house. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So the first bedroom on the second floor, the bedroom on the second floor, it overlooks my backyard and the rooms at the back. And I'm concerned that addition of a deck is further going to invade my privacy, and that's my concern.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, and because we also have plans approved for extension at the back, and that would bring our bedrooms further towards towards this house, and then they can directly look inside the bedrooms, and whatever little backyard we'll have, it will invade our privacy.
So you have approved plans, you said?
Yeah.
But they haven't been built yet?
No, not yet. But right now we are still with the current plan as it is.
Uh-huh.
The house is still,
so the
invading
footprint
our
of your
privacy.
house is somewhere below this line?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, that's all.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Okay. With that, there's nothing else. Katie, we didn't get anything else?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions?
There is a stairway right now, and you're taking the stairway out, so there won't be any access from the outside to the second story.
That's correct.
Sorry? Turned on? No, I'm on mute. Hello? Oh, that's good.
So if you can make sure you clip it on so we get it clear.
Yeah, do a clip. Don't, yeah, because you put it in towards your mouth, it doesn't come off. There we go.
Thank you.
Going up the stairway, you're still looking out there. Are you taking there's a door up there and it looks like a part of a room that the door goes into. Is that going to remain?
That's correct. The door stays.
Door stays, and a part of this room that stick out there is going to remain.
Right, so that's how you'd access
You're
that.
just going to make that whole thing deck right there.
That's right.
And what is the coming? How do you obtain access to that deck? Just that same door.
That's the door. Yeah, and the deck is what are we at?
Quarter inch. Quarter inch.
Thank you.
4 feet.
4 feet and change.
By
4 feet
not a
by
party deck.
15 feet.
Can you show me the deck exactly on your site plan? I can't tell where it is.
Yeah, sure. Part of it is because this is covered up to grid line B, so all you see is just a little snippet of it with that roof plan. So that's all you're seeing right there.
Yeah, but if you go look at here, this is existing, right?
That's right.
There is a 3-foot landing before that door. It's constructed today so that there's a 3-foot landing, then a set of steps, then a landing, and then another set of steps.
That's right.
So you come out a door, come down and out.
Okay.
There's a door here today,
That's
correct?
correct, yeah.
So if this is existing, that should show a door here.
That's correct.
Okay? And what are the existing windows look like here?
Let's see.
Are they different than what you're proposing up here?
Yeah, the only change is
Right now, there's no windows along that piece.
no windows. That's right. And I don't believe we're proposing. There's one bathtub window.
Oh, two.
Yeah.
So now you're proposing two windows. What about that? Is that it there now?
There is an existing opening.
And how big is that?
You're not showing that. Let's see. I'll have to come back with that. Sorry.
Okay, so there is some kind of opening here now, but it may not be as long as this opening. Okay, and these are two new openings here.
That's correct.
And these look like this.
Here's that. Yeah, you can see that.
Okay, so there is a, what appears to be a 3 foot, maybe 3.5, I don't think quite 4, but one of those dimensions around the corner. So there's a window here, okay, and it appears to be a casement or a slider. Don't know. Slider here, and then it turns, and then there's these guys. Two sets of sliders here and here, here and here. No windows here. And if you look at what he's proposing, are these fixed?
No, those are casements.
So these are casements, so they're going to open like that?
Like this.
Oh, that big, okay. So they're 30-inch casements, okay. And these are casements too?
This one's fixed. Over
That's
the top.
fixed?
Yep.
Okay, and an elevation, what do they look like?
Two more, I think I'll show you. So this is that deck. Here's the fixed. Here's the little casement, and there's the casements in the bedroom.
Okay, and then this is the completed deck, okay.
How far is that deck away from the back?
From the property line?
Yeah, property line.
Well, let's go to the site plan.
From the south property line, I guess it would be.
So it's 18 feet.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it's, 18 feet, or is it more than 18?
I think it's more. That's just the open yard area.
Okay, so it's, looks like, could be 18.6 or 18.9 or something.
Okay.
So it's more than 15 feet. Okay.
All right.
Right, other questions?
Yeah, the fireplace chimney top, what exactly did you have in mind there? It kind of looks...
I think just a standard, like, chimney king, available copper. Yes, real straightforward cottage.
This is a little kind of...
That is more decorative than I think we're going to end up with. Yes. You got it.
All right, other questions? So, just to be clear, so this is a new trellis over those doors.
That's correct.
Okay, these are new windows. This is a new surface on that side. These are louvers to the attic?
That's an existing window. I should read
Where
more
is
like
the,
this.
where's the photograph?
It's the other sheet.
I went to the site
got
and
one more.
looked, but went to the neighborhood.
Another garage door
No.
shot.
Oh, wait a minute, right here. So are those louvers or windows?
I think they're jalousies up there.
Jalousie windows.
Yeah.
So what are
what
they
it looks
going
like.
into? Is this a big open ceiling up here?
Yeah, that is open up there.
Okay, so this is okay.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's another piece of glass up
That's
here.
right, yep.
Okay. And you're not changing that?
They're going to keep those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're not venting this roof because this roof will be insulated,
It's vaulted icing, yes.
icing or some other strategy. Okay.
Exactly.
And then these are existing windows?
They're existing. Yeah,
And they're going to remain, or are they new?
They're going to be replaced, but same size.
Okay, and are they true mullions?
They are divided lights right now, yes.
They're going to be true divided lights in the future?
I don't know if they're going to be true divided lights.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then this is,
New entry door. So right now there's a single. We're
and
gonna
so you're
get
doing a
lights.
side light and a
That's
new entry door?
right. Yep.
Okay, and then these are
That's existing.
staying the same?
Staying, yep.
New windows, though?
I believe we're replacing all of them. Yes.
Okay, and the windows are all going to be clad? What, we don't know yet.
Yeah, Clyde. I mean, I think everything's going to be trimmed out white. So probably white.
if you look on sheet 820, he's got a nice comparison, actually.
Oh, okay, so I'm not looking at the right sheets. Oops. Oh, okay, yeah,
Is that a door going in right on that landing?
I don't know what that is. I don't think it's just old siding.
okay.
It's like some kind of window or door right there?
Does look like that, doesn't it? Although I don't know where it would get you.
Okay. And then just to be clear, you have to go to the staff hearing officer, and you're going to need to go to do two things, as I heard?
That's right.
And we go, just to review for the board.
Sorry, just to clarify, the staff hearing officer would be reviewing one of the items, which is the deck, and then you would be reviewing the request for the minor zoning exception, which is the roof height increase.
Okay, so just, let me go back to the site plan. I think that's where we want to go. So just to Katie, this is fine. So we're going to make the determination for the acceptability of this?
The roof height increase,
Right here?
yes.
Okay, that's where the E pops up. Because this point essentially is at the same point it is today? Is that what's going on?
This is the ridge today, so we're just going to break that pitch a couple feet down from the
Okay.
ridge.
Do we have a section through here?
We don't in this set.
Okay. And then the staff hearing officer is going to make the determination for the changes to this side.
Just the deck.
Just the deck. And so does that mean that this board needs to determine acceptability from an aesthetic standpoint?
Yes,
Okay,
on the deck.
on the deck only.
Well, specifically, you should on the other items as well,
But
but
what about this-
specifically the deck, the staff hearing officer would want your comments on the supportability of
And
the
are the
deck.
staff hearing officer going to want to comment on the trellis?
No, that does not require a mod.
Okay, and so it's just the deck, that's it?
Just the deck.
Okay, all right. Okay, further questions? If not, let's go to comments. Who has comments?
And yes, Mr. Chair, and looking at the deck and the fact that it's just a pretty small deck, it's well within our design guidelines, and the fact that it's beyond 15 feet, I don't think your privacy is going to be as, I don't think it'll be such a privacy issue as you're concerned about, because already there's a landing there. So I think the deck is within the guidelines. It's not like a party deck where people congregate. It's more of a, I don't know.
I think the deck's going to be used less than the stairway that they're taking
Right.
away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my comments.
Okay. Other comments? Okay, I think I'll start with the deck issue. I think I'm going to be more comfortable with allowing this deck to be done as you're proposing. One, because it meets our guidelines of the 15 feet back from the property line. And I would encourage the public to see Katie after the meeting or go to the city desk during office hours and have them show you, because I don't have them right here, the guidelines that we operate by for decks on second floors. And did we have it up? Oh, it's hiding under all the paperwork. Yeah, there is, if you want to take notes, it's on page 69 in of something called the official single-family design guidelines. And that's what we kind of have to pay attention to. So, but I'm going to be more comfortable if we get some additional landscaping here. Because I went out to the site, I only do it from where I can see on this public right-of-way. And I was concerned about the transition from whatever you're doing here to here. Initially, I thought this was going to be an ADU unit with people moving up and down the staircase. So that was a bigger concern than just having it as a master bedroom. So, but I do think there's some opportunity to landscape this to continue to minimize the privacy issues between the properties. Just so everyone understands, this board cannot guarantee privacy views. City attorney has advised us that we need to take careful consideration of privacy views, but we can't guarantee that, and we also cannot guarantee anybody's view, either adjacent properties or the applicant's property. So that's pretty clear, but we'll do the best we can. With regard to that, then I'm going to go to the elevations. Right here. I think there's an opportunity to reconfigure that window a little closer to the existing window dimension in terms of the casement opening. I think that'll go a little ways to helping the privacy issue. That window might be a little smaller, given the function that's on the other side of that. And certainly, I think this window over the bathtub could be smaller. Just because if I were in the bathroom, I don't want that big window there, unless I was out in the forest somewhere. So I think that window could get smaller. Okay. But it still allows the owner to have windows. The other window proportion issue that bothers me is here.
Yeah.
I understand why you want to lift this up to open this doorway, but I think the proportions that you lose something the minute you did that by not changing the size of these two windows. I think proportionally, if the relationship between the top of that window and the bottom of that eave got closer, it would look better.
Sure.
Okay? So, and I think that I would be very much in favor of making sure that anything you're proposing that has buttons or divided lights be true divided lights in a clad system, not the plant-on from the inside stuff. I know that's a budget issue, but that really, the windows kind of, in my view, make or break that. I think that if you want windows up here, the one thing that struck me when going out to the site, that this looked really odd, the placement of these two windows. You're probably going to need to go through and clean this all up anyway, and I'm suspecting once you spend all the money to change all these windows, because windows are going to be a problem of deterioration and leak and whatever, and if you're like everybody else, you're going to change these out. I would suggest you change these out and reconfigure these so that it makes more sense.
Sure.
Typically, if you're going to see a window like that, it's going to center on the apex of the ridge, not offset. I couldn't figure out why they did it that way. So those would be my concerns. The landscaping on the south side where the deck remains, I don't have a problem. The deck is not big. It's certainly not a party deck like we just reviewed on 2 previous applications. But I think, to minimize the privacy to the south, to the neighbor towards State Street, that's pretty important. We don't have the purview in this board to tell folks they can't have a second floor or a second story, particularly if it's existing. We just need to pay attention to its relationship to the other properties. And I think that having a little different approach to the window proportions on the front will get that to work properly. So those are my comments. Anyone else has comments?
Yeah, the roof.
Yes. And one of the things I'd like to see when you come back is a section through here, so I really understand how that thing is working.
You're raising this roof.
Starting
the roof
deck here somewhere.
Yeah. The roof right now is one plane all the way across there. Is that true? And it just drops lower because the windows, because the little alcoves right there.
That's right. You can kind of see that section forming right there.
Yeah. So you're going to retain this part of the roof here and that part of the roof over there, but you're going to raise that part of the roof.
Yeah. So what he's doing right there, you can kind of see it here, but it's not a true section.
Right.
So he's popping that up. So he's basically going to take that thing and lift it up.
Doesn't bother anybody else. Doesn't bother me.
No, that was my question also, Joe. I was curious about where that height was and how you were
basically it's just going to.
Well, I know what it's doing. I know what it's doing, but aesthetically, what it does to the outside of the house when you drive by that street, when you drive down that street and you see that whole.
So it makes this bigger, but to make this work, in my view, is these windows got to change. Then it will look proper. Right now, it looks strange.
Well, it looks strange to me whether the windows are, because you've got a window, you got a door, well, a roof that's now not one plane now. You got a roof that pops up, comes down, pops up.
Just one pop.
One pop, yeah.
We did study over the door, and that looked really weird. So
corny, not weird, but corny.
Uncomfortable, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think if he just does that, it kind of starts to work. Then you get a shadow line, then you get a shadow line, and then you get a shadow line. These guys sit back in here, this sits back like this, and then I think the proportions work. See what I'm getting at? Then it'll look right.
Okay.
It's a proportion thing.
Changing the size of the windows to make the roof look right.
Right. Because what they're real after is getting headroom into this thing.
Yeah, it's almost 6'8", as you're coming under that roof there. You can touch it coming in.
So it's just trying to get that to look up a bit.
All right.
Okay.
All right. I said my piece.
Anyone else? Okay, if there are no other comments, we need to craft a motion, either one of two things. Either requesting the applicant to return with further study on various items, or a motion that would indicate to the applicant that we're supportive of the applicant proceeding to the staff hearing officer. And then if that's the case, then we need to be explanatory to the staff hearing officer about the acceptability of the deck and the aesthetics associated with the deck on the south property line, because that's part of the modification requirement. And then, Katie, if we did that, do we actually take an action on the roof element today, or does that come?
No, so when they return for project design and final, that's when you would make the MZE findings.
We can give some inference to the applicant about our concerns or issues about the change in this roof pitch. So is anyone willing to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
The board would like to make the following comments. First, we support the, what you call it, the
deck?
Well, no, the
roof height increase?
Oh, the modification thing,
Yeah, that's the deck.
Okay, yeah, okay. The board supports the deck configuration. We feel that it's within our guidelines and does not pose serious privacy issues. Also considering the fact that there was also an existing stair access there before. The board would like the architect to study the front elevation. What elevation is that? The north elevation. The proportions of the two front windows in relationship to the roof pop-out. The board would also like to see a section through that particular part of the house to better understand the roof configuration. The board also would like to see a study of the window location on the south elevation as well. The board feels that the overall style, size, bulk, and scale is appropriate to the neighborhood. And that's my motion.
I would
Is it returning to this board or consent? Or, I mean, full board or consent?
Oh, and add to the motion this better clarification of the chimney caps. I think the full board.
Okay, so the full board. I'm going to suggest to the maker of the motion you add a few words of detail. That when the applicant returns with a study on the south elevation, that all of the three window openings be studied. Consider reducing the size of the window in the bathroom and reducing the size of the window at the southeast corner of the second story. And that the applicant restudy the window just below the rake on the west elevation at the second floor, and that the applicant show a study and consideration for some additional landscaping on the south property line, adjacent to the south property line, in an effort to minimize privacy views where the new deck and windows appear on the second floor above the garage. Is that acceptable to the maker of the motion? Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Okay, is there further discussion to the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions, so carried. Okay, we'll see you back here when we get through that part. Okay. And with that, we're at the end of our agenda. The chair, unless there's further business before the board, the chair will close the August 6, 2018 board. Microphone.